This episode of Profiles in Risk is sponsored by IA-Path. IA-Path, unlocking your adjusting superpowers. Go to iapath.com.
This is Profiles in Risk. Hosted by Nick Lamparelli. Every week, we interview those who risk life, limb, fortunes, career, and reputation, and those who work behind the scenes who look to protect and enlighten us about risk. You can find the show notes and other insurance-related content at insnerds.com. That's insnerds.com. Now, on to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Profiles in Risk. I'm your host, Nick Lamparelli. On this beautiful New England morning, I am pleased to introduce Lisa, Lindsay, and Azeema Hartley. Lisa is the Executive Director, and Azeema is the Director of Member Relations at the Private Risk Management Association, or the PRMA, as we'll refer to them. They're based out of New York, and I'd like to welcome Lisa and Azeema to Profiles in Risk. Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good morning. Thanks for having us, Nick.
We're right on the cusp, depending on what time zone you're in. So thank you so much for coming on. I have to say, we had a pre-conversation. I was telling Lisa how much benefit I've gotten already. I'm not even officially a member of the PRMA, and I've already benefited.
We need to change that.
We're going to change that. Definitely. It's just bad timing or bad lack of planning on my part. But
I get it, Nick.
The PRMA, I've gotten benefits from it. Everyone I talked to when I went to that event, I was so pleased to see like such a polished event with such great content for everyone, and the collaboration was great. So before we get into all of that, I'm going to start off with Lisa. If you could describe in your own words, what is the PRMA?
Great. Thanks, Nick. I'd be happy to do it. We're a not-for-profit professional association that was established in 2014, and our mission is really pretty simple. We want to just provide tremendous value to our membership, and when we kind of think about the value that we want to provide, I always go back and look at the two main reasons that we actually formed the association. We want to be an advocacy group. We are an advocacy group for the high net worth insurance industry, because we do a lot of really great things. We help people live their lives successfully. We help them have the best outcome possible should they suffer a claim. We help them not have a claim by giving them sound risk management advice. And we really believe we're just a great forum to advocate for the fine work that we do. The other reason we sort of embarked on this journey was to help elevate the advice that's given to high net worth consumers. And we wanted to be a resource to our membership where through education, thought leadership, and peer group collaboration, we would be able to help improve the advice that high net worth consumers get and really start to change the mindset about what we do. And finally, we are, insurance carriers, we're insurance agents and brokers, we're specialty providers like restoration companies. And through our daily collaboration, we're just helping each other get better at what we do. I think what we've done since 2014 it just makes me smile, to be quite honest.
Lisa, were you a part of this right from the start?
Yeah, I was. A bunch of us. I happened to be running Marsh's private client service group in the U.S. at the time, but 2012, 2013, a bunch of us got together, competitors, if you will, and sat in a conference room at Marsh's New York headquarters and really said, you know what? Let's just do this, because we're all tackling this raising awareness task separately, right, within our own organizations. But wow, what if we came together? What if we thought about generously sharing our expertise to advance our collective mission forward? Wouldn't that just be something powerful? So absolutely, I've been in from the beginning as a founding member and a trustee, and then was brought in as the executive director. So it's really been a pretty rewarding journey.
There are probably a lot of folks listening that would think, well, high net worth families, high net worth individuals, I mean, they have help. They have plenty of advisors that are helping them. Could you talk a little bit, though, about the advisors and how much help that they need and how complicated that specific market? I don't think people really understand how complicated that specific market. I mean, in some respects, the high net worth families could be considered like middle market commercial. It's that big and that complicated. So could you talk a little bit about why do the advisors and the carriers and the restoration companies, why do they need to come together? Why was their struggle before then? I guess that's how I'm going to phrase that question.
Yeah, it's a great question, Nick, and it's a question that we've been sort of asking and answering for decades in the high net worth space. And I guess the simple way I would articulate it is that without education, without raising awareness, high net worth individuals and even advisors to high net worth individuals really have the mindset that all insurance and all risk is created equal, and the solutions to risk exposure are pretty black and white, and that you can get insurance from anyone and be covered, and that's just simply not true. There are a ton of good insurance professionals out there. There are a ton of great insurance companies out there that serve middle market type clients who don't have complex lifestyles quite well. Well, when you get into high net worth individuals, there's complexity around ownership structure. Are there LLCs? There's complexity around the things they do, sit on not-for-profit boards or high-profile individuals and celebrities. There's complexity around things they own like aircraft and boats and all of those things. And what we find, quite honestly, that absent professionals like us, our association and our members, educating CPAs, attorneys, family office, CEOs, and others that provide advice to high net worth families, that there's just not a good understanding that these complexities require a different level of expertise. And guess what? There are actually people who specialize in this. And that's really why we've embarked on this mission in the association. And that's why our members put a lot of effort into training their employees and dedicating the time and the attention they do and providing world-class service to high net worth individuals. So I really think there's just a simple lack of awareness out there with the high net worth individual and their advisors of the complexities of the lifestyles they lead.
Yeah, and Nick, I'd love to add to that. If you think about the entrepreneurial spirit that we have here in the States, anyone can basically build a business and grow it. And if you think of the number of millionaires and wealthy that has been able to grow in the past 10, 15 years, you may have an individual that starts out and it's easy to not think about your insurance and then all of a sudden end up in the state where you do have this complicated lifestyle and assets and ownerships and various things. And being able to have someone talk to you, to give you the advice, really being able to give those individuals who suddenly are in a different area and they need the risk management advice. And that's where our field really sort of comes in and gives the help to the client, right? Because at the end of the day, like, the client is at the center, at the core of what PRMA builds in terms of the advice that clients are getting, the services, the experience in their insurance journey, regardless of if it's simple and straightforward or if it's super complicated that fits into the mid-sized commercial that you mentioned earlier.
Thank you for that. When I'm having conversations with folks, I think a lot of people think that when you're wealthy, you've got life made. And I always try to remind them, like, try to put yourself in their shoes. Once you're wealthy, the level of stress and risk actually ratchets up because you have so many more responsibilities. You have people to be responsible to, organizations to be responsible to. and you have all of these new risks that they didn't have before. I think it's kind of scary to be wealthy because of that. And I'm glad you talked about like all of the different organizations that are contributing to that. Azeema, could you talk about the membership itself? And Lisa had mentioned, carriers and agents and restoration companies, but could you talk about the diversity of the field? And I was struck at the event by all the different sorts of specialties that are required to service this market.
Yes, absolutely. We did mention we do have a lot of specialists that are members anywhere from art to antique to collector car restorations or even home restorations. A lot of our clients will maybe travel to Europe and be inspired by a certain architecture and then want to replicate that back in California somewhere. So we have this great depth of restoration specialists. But, we also have wealth managers and family offices that are members as well. And a lot of the association, there's a great diversity on the brokerage and agency side. While we do have the nationals, we also have smaller, independent family businesses that really coexist within the association. And one could say that the needs of these two dichotomies can be quite, different, but we're able to somehow build benefits that, that we find that both sets are taken care of. Lisa mentioned earlier that a big part of what we do is education. We have the big nationals that tend to typically have a bigger budget. We'll take advantage of our education programs, much like smaller, independent, family-owned businesses who maybe don't have the resources to train their people. And what's great about the association is there's strength in numbers, but we also have a shared economy model going. Lisa mentioned that we're all competitors and we're all sort of figuring out how can we be the best at what we do. So you can imagine there's a fair amount of duplication happening. But if you think about, building some of the education platform or different tools that, over time we offer to the membership, there's something really valuable to having a shared economy model, similar along the lines, why should everyone have a car? Maybe if we had 5 cars and we all used it based on our own needs. So, the membership is diverse and we are able to have a shared economy model where everyone sort of gets to say, well, you know what, this program really fits in with what I'm looking for. I'd like to take part in that. So it's very dynamic, the way the membership works in its diversity.
Hey, Azeema, that's a great point you bring up regarding the sharing economy. And I really think that really starts to sort of show people. It's how people can really touch and feel the value of our association. And I'd like to use our Chartered Private Risk and Insurance Advisor certification as the perfect example of this sharing economy type of thing we've created. In 2015, we surveyed our members and got some insight into what they wanted from an educational certification. And they told us it needed to be affordable and it needed to be accessible. And what we were able to do is we were able to gather the intellectual capital from over 50 professionals across all of those organizations that Azeema just mentioned, professionals and in fact competitors, take that intellectual capital and create the first ever totally online curriculum dedicated to high net worth risk management professionals. Since it's online, since we got all these 50 plus volunteers to hand over their years worth of experience and intellectual capital, we created a curriculum that right now has over 250 graduates. We've got another 100 graduating this month. We've got 300 people enrolled in a course. And so you look at that and you go, wow, even a national broker would not have had the resources or the budget to create something like that. And that really starts to totally frame out what we're all about.
That gets me into so your certification gets me into all of the other things that you're doing as well. I'm always pleased when I get my email from Azeema that's saying that, there's going to be this webinar. Azeema, let's start with you. Can you go into the types of not the certification classes, but the additional webinars and other courses that you offer during the course of the year? And we'll get right back to this podcast right after a short message from our sponsor. I'm here with Chris Stanley, founder of IAPath. So Chris, what is IAPath and why did you start it?
Well, Nick, I started IAPath because a friend of mine wanted to get into the industry and couldn't find anything online about how to become an independent auto damage appraiser. And I just thought that was crazy and kind of unacceptable. So I decided I wanted to make it easier to be and become an independent appraiser and adjuster by providing people with information, inspiration, and eventually certification. From the beginning, it was important to me that I'd be a real human being that people could connect to. Yet, I dreamed it would become an organization that was big enough to make a difference. So what is IAPath? We're here to give people a clear-cut path to becoming an IA. Thus the name IAPath.
IAPath, unlocking your adjusting superpowers. Go to iapath.com. That gets me into so your certification gets me into all of the other things that you're doing as well. I'm always pleased when I get my email from Azeema that's saying that, there's going to be this webinar. Azeema, let's start with you. Can you go into the types of not the certification classes, but the additional webinars and other courses that you offer during the course of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I like to think of it as, if Buddha wanted to be enlightened about risk management, then this would be the perfect place for him, he, she, it. I don't know what gender Buddha was, but to start. And we call it such. We call it the Enlightenment Series, and it's typically the third Thursdays of the month, and we will pick a topic that is relevant to our space that we know that people want to sit in, call in, listen to. For example, we've got one coming up the month of June. If you think about insurance, and a great part of what we are is helping people to deal with the loss. So we have a company coming in that basically deals with when families suffer a loss to their homes. What is involved with that process of relocating them, making sure that they're okay, and their kids are not still being able to get to school, and the commute's the same, and all these things that you don't really think about. You know that the claim's being settled and the person's going to be taken care of in some way, but there's a lot of details that go into the risk management of enabling it to skill. So, anyone from the carrier side, broker side, a specialist side could call in and listen to an expert talk about what's involved in relocating a family and, the types of scenarios that they see. And again, share that intellectual capital. We pick many different topics. We will host events on art or wine, fraud. We have an event coming up on collector cars. Most of our families employ individuals to help them run their businesses, to look after their families. So, you think of the scope and the exposures and the risk of a complicated lifestyle from a straightforward as having a coastal property to, having an ownership in a private aircraft. So we pick these topics, we go out, we find the experts, and, we limit it to 30, 40 minutes. That person talks. There's a Q&A. So that's part of our Enlightenment Series. And we find that, people really enjoy it. And it's quite similar to your podcast, except in a different format.
The world needs more content like my podcast. Let's just be frank there.
Yes.
But I have to give kudos. You started yours before I started mine. So really the world needs more content like the PRMA is creating it. I have attended a couple of those webinars. They're fantastic. Like the level of expertise that the guests bring. You guys aren't just like making webinars to just make content. You guys are literally putting experts, specialists that come in, and quite frankly, I think they spill some secrets. Like they go into a lot of details about what it is that they do and how it is that they do it. I appreciate that. Like there's nothing, I don't leave a lot of those webinars scratching my head. As a matter of fact, one in particular, I remember I reached out to the guest. I may have reached out to you, Azeema, to reach out to the guest because I wanted to keep the conversation going. I was that intrigued with what he had presented. So that's you do fantastic work there. So Lisa, what do you on the event side, where gatherings and things of that nature, what does the PRMA do in any given year?
Yeah, so we have our hallmark annual event called our Summit, which is typically in November. This year it'll be November 4th through 5th, and it will be in Oak Brook, Illinois, right smack dab in between O'Hare and Midway for easy access. And we're really proud of our annual summit. This will be our 5th annual summit. And what we try to do in the summit, again, it's educationally focused, and it's an opportunity for us to bring forth topics in a general session fashion that maybe people aren't talking about every day. We had a wonderful speaker last year, Jack Oldrich, who's a futurist. So he was able to, allow us to sit back for a few moments in our very busy lives to think about what does the future look like with driverless cars and different trends and the impact that will have on all of us in our industry and certainly on all of us personally. So from a general session standpoint, we try to bring forth topics and trends. Nick, as you recall, we had you out on the main stage, just really talking about the change in the risk exposure of flood and our notion that we would rely on FEMA flood maps is just ridiculous. And we need to really start thinking about that differently. The other thing that we offer at the summit are breakout groups. And those are smaller groups where we're taking a deep dive into maybe risks that would impact the global citizen, or taking a deep dive into earthquake preparedness and all sorts of topics. They tend to be a little bit more technical in nature, but it allows people to engage in a smaller group panelist type of session. And then, we have a lot of fun on our Monday night because we have an award ceremony where we recognize professionals who have done outstanding work in their field. We've got power brokers and we celebrate our CPRIA graduates. And one of the things that people tell us about the summit is that what a great community atmosphere where people have worked together in the past, are rejoined together, and just a lot of collaboration, community, fun networking, and I think that people enjoy that networking just as much as they enjoy the educational content that we provide, and we're really proud of actually again being able to get 270 competitors collaborating together to be better at what they do, and it's a really, I think, Azeema, you'd agree with me, it's a pretty humbling experience when you watch what goes on during that time. And Nick, I think you experienced that as well.
Yeah, Azeema, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I would say that my favorite part of the event is seeing the competitors collaborate. For instance, we do have some stuff on the main stage, and then we do have technical sessions, but we also have roundtables where, okay, if somebody wanted to talk about, all right, I want to be inspired by others on what they're doing to grow their business. So suddenly you're in a room and, you're sitting across the table from one of your competitors at another agency, and it's just sort of open. Everyone's open. Everyone's talking about what's working for them or their challenges. So that's my favorite part of the event, just seeing all of those competitors being open and willing to share and learning from each other's experience. It's kind of cool. We have fun, and I do love the award ceremony. And it's just nice to highlight people who are, the superstars in our industry, and have others be inspired by them. And I mean, just, so think about your audience, Nick, and I saw something come across my desk about writing an open letter to college grads on how rewarding your career can be in this field. And when I think about, my career, I started working in the insurance industry when I was at university, and just being around really smart, just sort of kind people. And, I had been in other industries before, and the insurance industry just sort of had like less of like, people just had like less of a, this is a family friendly show of the a-hole factor. People genuinely cared about each other and their development. Being able to, it's being able to see that evolution. It is a small industry. We do sort of get to know each other, and people do move around. So it's just a lot of collaboration and a lot of fun that occurs at the event.
Azeema, you brought up your work in your career before the PRMA. Lisa had hinted on that as well. Could each of you go into, what it takes to run an industry association and how different that is from a day-to-day operations that most of our listeners are going to be on the agency or the carrier side. Could you each go into what it takes to get an industry association up and running and growing and providing all of the the benefits that you need to provide? How different is that from your prior career when you were either in insurance or other industries in your day-to-day lifestyle there? Either one.
Wow, that's a good one, Nick. I'm actually sitting here smirking, wondering if I should go first or whether I should toss it over to Azeema. But I'll go ahead and give it a stab, and then I'll let Azeema jump in. I don't even know how to start, so let me start here. It's very different, yet it's the same. So you take a bunch of your experience in the insurance business and your understanding of what employees, colleagues need in order to provide a great client experience, and I took my knowledge of high net worth individuals. So a lot of great knowledge and background from my prior experience at Marsh in the high net worth space, where I spent 23 plus years. And then you go, great, I'm going to start an association, and you're sitting in your house with your MacBook, and you're now trying to figure out how to do very basic tasks that you never had to do before. So, I think it's been a really interesting journey to be able to say, I've got the expertise and I've got the knowledge, but when it comes to actually executing on certain things, it's really been, we've had some growing pains, and it's been an interesting journey when you're, managing your own calendar and you're figuring out how to set up events and get money from people and send out newsletters and whatnot. That I can speak. Can't necessarily speak for Azeema, but I didn't know how to do any of that. So it's been fun. It's been fun to go through that learning curve. At times, it's been wildly frustrating when you can eat away 3 hours because you can't get your printer to work and you don't have IT to call anymore. But I think the good news is that the necessary knowledge about high net worth risk management and the value that we should provide to the association, we have, and it's just kind of learning how to get a startup going. And we get better every day, and we have fun almost every day. I guess is what I would say. Z, what would you add in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would add in that we wear so many different hats. And, I worked on the underwriting side and on the broking side at AIG and at Marsh and at Bruce Gendelman, where, it was very sort of client focused, working on the expertise, giving me advice. And then suddenly to be in an environment where, you're okay, well, how do we, we're building, we're talking to the media and doing our own public relations, and we're our own communications person, and we're our own website developer. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, in growing and building anything, it has been a lot of fun, and really being able to listen to the membership and continue to just build value. It's good. And, and I would say one of the challenges is being able to build value that the diversification of the membership always, can utilize.
I can attest, you guys do great work. I have a wife that did, worked on events, large events, where hundreds of people are coming, and I don't think anyone that attends an event truly appreciates how much work. I mean, you guys are starting months and months and months ahead of time, and you're probably having conversations years ahead of time just to, set some things up and put those in place. Let's just real quick before we go into the personal questions. The event, and Azeema, could you talk about like some of the things that you have to think about when structuring an event that a lot of attendees are probably unaware of and take for granted?
Yeah, I mean, there's always like the usual stuff, right? The environment, in terms of being able, like we were having someone create a video recently, and it's like the stuff that you have to think about in terms of lighting and sound, but really just being able to be on your toes, because we've got 200 to 250 people, 270 people in a room, various presenters from all walks of the industry, and just being able to, you never know where a presenter is going to take you, or what questions are going to pop up. So it's just really being prepared and being able to be flexible and nimble. I find when you're throwing an event, you may have the best laid plans mentally in your head, and Lisa and I could sort of go through things and do our dry runs, and here's how we anticipate things can happen. But when you go live sometimes, and you've got all these people in the mix, you got to be able to just roll with it and make it work.
Yeah, and I would go on. Yeah, and I would just say, I mean, if you really think about, right, if you think about any event that you've ever been to, what goes into it spans from, did you get the right speaker? Was the topic relevant? Did you advertise it in a way that people could decide, right, what breakout group they wanted to join? Were you clear in all of that? And then it goes all the way down to food allergies and what are you serving for dinner Monday night versus, Sunday lunch. And so I guess I would say just the mix of things that you have to touch is broad and entertaining oftentimes. Some of the questions that we get asked and some of the challenges we face, and it keeps us honest and keeps us on our toes.
Can I ask, out of all of the events that you've done, has there anything that's popped up in your head that you were, at the moment that it happened, you're like, oh my God, this is the end? Anything that kind of sticks out as kind of humorous, or at the time, or now, but that at the time was like mortifying?
Yeah. So this was probably like 3 years ago. And we, mobile apps were all at events where we're starting to take off, and we're like, we definitely need a mobile app at our event. So we do a bit of research. We talked to a few companies. We ended up using a recommendation off of one of our members, and we get this app going. And it was just hilarious because, we go live and we didn't have all of the right pieces in place. The app wasn't actually a true app. And then, if you've ever been part of a gamification, there are a lot of codes involved. And I didn't equip all of the vendors. We played these games, but not everybody. So it was just like, what? Like, why did we do this? But, that was a learning experience. And so that one sticks out as just sort of
Azeema, it was that moment when we said, hey, let's be forward thinking, forget the printed agenda, let's do the mobile app. And literally, people just walked around with their phone basically asking us, where was the agenda and where should they go next? And we thought, that didn't really play out the way we envisioned, but we're getting better.
Yeah, I go to so many events, and I still struggle with the app. It doesn't exactly do what I want it to do, so I still like to have the paper agenda just so I don't get lost. But yeah, the technology is really changing everything. I would like to transition over and get to know both of you a little bit more and have our audience get a feeling for who Lisa and Azeema are. So I'm going to ask each of you, and I'll alternate. I'll start with Lisa. When you aren't working, what do you enjoy doing?
Yeah, when I'm not working, I will choose to do anything at all that gets me outdoors. And I love cycling. I've done a lot of charity cycling events, multi-day events. I like hiking. I like kayaking. I honestly just like anything that gets me outdoors. And I think part of it is, fresh air. I think part is just the physical aspect of those activities. And most importantly, it's just becoming unconnected to work, to technology. And I think that it just makes me a healthier and happier person. So all things outdoors is what I'm all about.
Yeah, I think New York winters contribute to that too, I bet.
I'm sure that's true, yeah.
Azeema?
Yeah, I have to say that Lisa and I are similar in that regard. When, especially working from home, I spend, a fair amount of time sort of by myself in a virtual world. Any chance I get, I love being outside. I love being on the water. I do a fair amount of sailing and kayaking with my family. I also, now is the perfect season for it. I love playing tennis, so I'll try to play like 2 or 3 times a week, and just busy. I mean, I'm one of those people that I always need. I'm always like going to another meeting or event. I also have 3 young kids who are in sports and tons of activities. So I'm always, I coach soccer teams. I'm chess mom. I'm serving the special meals at certain times, afternoon snacks. Just there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of dimensions to life outside of work.
You're busy, so it's perfect segue to my next question, which is, I'll start with Azeema. Juggling all of those things, what tools or techniques do you use to stay productive and or organized?
Yeah, I have to say I love my calendars, and time management is a big part of it. And I think for me, it's knowing myself well enough to know that I need structure. So I need to carve time out. I need to say on these specific days, I will go and work someplace else away from the home, like at the start of the week, so I'm not distracted by other things. But also like really building time for myself as well. Like if I say, okay, I've got like a solid amount of time blocked out to work, where do I fit in some time for myself to do something active, and or also to see other people, which I think is hugely important. So scheduling lunches and being able to learn from your peers, or even if it's just purely social. But a lot of it is just, on Sunday night, sitting down and thinking about what's coming up for the week. Do I have everything that I need? Is there a good balance? And really just spending at least 15 to 20 minutes just setting yourself up for success. And then also being forgiving. Like, okay, if you know that you ended up, like Lisa said earlier, spending 3 hours because your Wi-Fi was down and you were frustrated, just taking a deep breath and say, okay, well, I won't let that derail me. There's still these things that I want to accomplish for myself to feel good at the end of the week. So I just have to let that go and keep moving forward.
That's so interesting. Digital or old school paper calendars?
Digital.
Yeah, that's okay.
Digital, but it kind of drives me crazy because at the moment I've got 3 calendars, and this is just a busy time of year for me right now. And Nick, I will admit that I've been printing out the calendar and like scribbling on it, and I love checking off things that I check off, like everything on the calendar by day. I know there's a lot of people listening out there that can relate to this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lisa, what tools or techniques do you use to stay productive and or organized?
Yeah, too funny, Azeema. I agree with all you said. I'm actually working really hard right now on just practicing being in the moment. And what I mean by that is this whole thing about multitasking has really got me wondering about my own personal productivity. And there's books out there, but I'm coming to the conclusion that maybe I multitask just a little bit too much, and that if I practice on being in the moment instead of jumping from one task to another, or feeling like I have to immediately answer every email that comes in, that I would do a better job, and I would be more productive. And so for me, I'm really trying to sort of look at technology differently, and almost a little bit about what Azeema said, and start to just more put things in different buckets, and say there's a time for this bucket and there's a time for that bucket, versus sort of letting email and other things sort of dictate what I'm doing in the moment. And so that's what I'm trying to do from a work perspective. And there's a lot to be said for the positive impact that can have also on family life. So I'm just trying to be in the moment.
You're not alone. I think we're, as a society, as a culture, we're starting to realize the danger of the heavy reliance on technology and what it does to us emotionally. I hear it more and more, and now I'm using, of course, I'm using technology now to help me meditate and try to be in the moment. It's so weird. I'm trying to get away from it, but I kind of need it to kind of help me get into that deep state. So I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about that coming forward, and just how technology is a tool. So it's got trade-offs. It's not just automatically going to make us productive. It has a deep psychological effect on us. So I appreciate both of you going into detail about that. My final question for each of you, I'll start with Lisa this time, is what books have been influential in your business and or personal lives?
Oh boy, that's a great question. So many good books. I'm going to start. I'll start on the business side. I was lucky enough to take a 3-month executive. It was called the General Manager Program, but it was a 3-month program at Harvard through their executive education program. So you got to go away for 3 months and learn. And there was a book that I was introduced to and happened to get to spend time with one of the authors, and it was called The Service Profit Chain: How Leading Companies Link Profit and Growth to Loyalty, Satisfaction, and Value. And, you know, it's something that I deeply, deeply believe in and will guide me forever. And it's the simple notion is that if you provide employees with the tools they need to do their job so that they can deliver a stellar client experience, then you will have satisfied clients who will be loyal to you, and therefore you'll get referrals, you'll retain them, and all of that. So, you know, it was written back in 1997, before client experience was a word that was used on a daily basis. And I just think that the whole concept of having employees who are happy and can do their jobs, making you know, have happy clients is just, it's almost that simple, yet very complicated to execute on. So that's what I would say from a business perspective. From a personal perspective, a newer read, I was introduced to a book called Tribe by Sebastian Junger. And the book explores the power of community and people's sense of wanting to be part of something bigger than themselves and how it contributes to their well-being. And you know, as I think about where we are as an association, when I think about sort of where we are as a country, and some of the stuff and conversations that are going on a daily basis, I really feel like all of us stepping back and really understanding that as we've evolved, right? We talked about technology, Nick, in terms of our day-to-day lives, but, you know, communities are different. I grew up next door to my grandparents. My kids didn't grow up next to their grandparents. Many families move away from jobs. We're more self-sufficient. You don't necessarily rely on your neighbor to borrow a cup of sugar. And I think that really understanding what we need to do as a society to get back that notion of value and community is super important. So I think that's a great read for anybody at any phase in their life, and it has applicability to business. And I think of our association, our community, in the same way. So those are my two picks.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. That was, you know, you normally we don't get we get to hear the deep interaction. You know, why do you love the book? But you just described it so well. I truly want to buy that one. So I will, for the listeners, I will put that on the show notes so you can connect to it. Azeema, what books have been influential in your business and or personal lives?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many books out there, and but I think one that sticks out for me professionally is a book, Start with the Why by Simon Sinek. It came out a few years ago, and what I love about this book is that whenever I'm working on something or thinking about how to approach my positioning, I always remember the message, and it's really, well, why am I doing this, and how is it going to benefit, you know, either the members or, you know, or myself or my family. And I think, you know, I've worked at many companies where more emphasis was always played, well, how do we get this done? Or what exactly, you know, what are we trying to do? Like, how, you know, how do we do, and how do we get it done? But not necessarily why are we doing this? And I think for me, when I focus on why, it inspires me to sort of just keep that laser focus, and then all of the other stuff falls into play instead of me getting sort of caught up. Well, how, or really, well, what can I give to people to sort of to make them see that this could be quite helpful, or if they took up this education program, or it's. I find that that's a book that I always sort of go back to. And I actually really enjoy Simon Sinek's message in general. And I sign up I get messages, inspirational messages from him that end up in my inbox. Again, here we are using technology to sort of shape and how we exist and how we're inspired, whether it's to meditate or to get our morning dose of inspiration. And personally, at the moment, there's so many books that I am an avid reader, but I find at the moment that I am reading a lot of fiction, but historical fiction, and a lot of it is centered around, our history, America's history, as it relates to race issues. And I just put down a book, Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. And before that, I read The Beautiful Struggle by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and it really forces you to reflect on certain things that you just sort of take for granted or accept for happening, where you could actually take a different approach. You can question it, and you can stand up in small but great ways.
I think historical fiction is very underrated as a genre, because you get to learn the history, but you get to learn it in a way that is educational, but touches you. I just think it's underrated. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for the book recommendations and your heartfelt feelings towards them. Thank you so much for spending an hour with me. How can people get in touch with you and or the PRMA?
Certain. Go ahead, Z.
I would say if you want to learn more about us, we've got a website, privateriskmanagement.org, or if you're thinking about coming to our event in November, it's PRMAsummit.org. And Lisa and I are both very easily to reach on that. It's our name. It's Azeema.Hartley at privateriskmanagement.org. Quite long, but I'll be there after you get through all of the typing.
Lisa, your email address?
It's Lindsay, so LLINDSAY at privateriskmanagement.org. But anybody who shoots over to our website can also find a link there under our contacts, and we'd be happy to get back to you right away.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we're also on LinkedIn and Twitter, so you can reach us there as well.
I will put all of those on the show notes for anyone that's listening. This was a great hour. Thank you so much for for the work that you do at the PRMA, and just the heartfelt effort that you're putting into your day-to-day stuff and the stuff outside of your day-to-day stuff. I'm very appreciative.
Great. Thanks, Nick. It was great to be invited.
Yeah. So my guest this week has been Azeema Hartley and Lisa Lindsay of the Private Risk Management Association. Thanks again.